Hello and welcome back to Into the Shadows. I'm Melissa, and if you're new here, welcome. This is a space where we talk about all things shadow work and the unconscious. I share with you dreams that help me on my path to individuate and grow. So, before I start off on today's podcast theme, I wanted to just give a quick note and tell you some things that I've been struggling with lately. So the last episode I posted a couple weeks ago, I said I was going to talk about some self-sabotage patterns that had been coming up for me. And that's definitely the case. I feel like they're still active and ongoing. So I'm not going to talk about it today, but I'm really struggling to let go of perfection and let go of this idea that I have to kind of self-filter my voice. So if you haven't tuned into earlier episodes, I have a lot of childhood trauma that made it so that it was really hard for me to speak my truth, to show up authentically as myself, even just to be exposed, to feel, the fear of judgment or feeling like I'm not doing it right. So I had a dream just barely where I was in a swimsuit and I was crawling over a fence and there was people on the other side watching, and I was really worried about the way that my butt looked. And so this episode is quite literally me exposing myself, but not in the way of my butt, but just in a way where I'm going to do my best throughout this episode to not pause as much, to not edit myself, and to not re-record sections, and just kind of let myself be free and flow and not worry so much about if I'm making a mess or if I don't sound right. And so bear with me and, hold my hand through this as I attempt to just share my voice in a really way more freeing, instinctual way. So today's episode, I had a download pop in as I was driving. And, I heard what's the purpose of life? To talk about that. So when this download dropped in, I kind of sat with it for a minute and wrote down some ideas and thoughts that I had about it. And, it made me think about how a lot of us through life go through disconnected from our purpose. And I really think that reconnecting to our purpose and why we're here helps us learn what the purpose of life is. Years ago, when I was disconnected from my purpose, I would go outside and I would look up at the sky in desperation. And I would say to the sky, to the stars, to anyone up there who was listening, why am I here? What is the purpose of this? I really genuinely meant it. But it was coming from a place of just meaningless and suffering and quite honestly a deep depression. And, I wanted to give up. I wanted to be done. I wasn't suicidal by any means, but, if someone would have put an end button in front of me, I would have pushed it. I just had no meaning and I had no purpose. Life felt really mundane. It wasn't until maybe a few years later that I heard a quote, or I can't remember exactly where I heard it actually, but something along the lines of, you're suffering, if you want to be done with life, it's not that that's true, even though it feels like it. It's that there's a facet of your ego that's asking for integration, that's asking to essentially die. It gave me this ability to separate myself from my suffering. So instead of my suffering being something that was all-consuming that I had to believe, it helped me kind of open this door of possibility that this wasn't just, my consciousness in my life telling me that I should give up and be done, even though that's how I felt. It was showing me there was a doorway, that there was a deeper part of me that was asking for integration. And if you think about it, it's pretty genius on your body's part, right? Because you walk through this life and your body is so connected to your psyche and your intuition and your feminine knowing that oftentimes we forget that. We forget how ingenious our bodies are. So if you're walking through life and you're up in your head and you're overthinking, you're not as connected to your body. But your body is still talking to you. It's still trying to get your attention. And so what better way to course correct your life than to show you that, hey, you're feeling lackluster here. You're feeling like life is slowing down and you're feeling depression and life has lost its flavor and its connection. That doesn't mean something's wrong with you. In fact, it means that you're evolving. That's the doorway. So when we learn to listen to our bodies and this slowing down and this lackluster part of us that wants to give up, instead of ignoring it or medicating it, we face it. So we learn how to churn towards the things that weigh us down. And we get curious. What is it that you need? What are you asking for? And that answer isn't going to always be super obvious. But when we turn towards it and we get curious about it, that's when life gives us another pathway. So how do we start listening to this part of us? For me, what really helped me was learn to start to listen to my body. Learn to start to listen to my body's cues. And, I have a podcast I think it's titled Follow Your Bliss. But it's this idea that your body is an antenna and it's showing you the way. And when you start to listen to it, especially your bliss, that's when it leads you to your purpose. And I really believe that when we find our purpose, we discover the meaning of life. Because think about it. We're not here to, work jobs that we hate. We're not here to numb out. We're not here to settle. We're here to evolve and we're here to grow. We're here to learn life's lessons and listen to our deeper intuition that's connected to our bodies so that it can guide us on our path to where we're going. And, the coolest thing about that too is everything is inside of you. Like, I know I've spoken a lot about dreams, and I'm just going to put this in here, but dreaming is an amazing pathway to guiding you to heal and guiding you to your purpose. And it's a way where, you already have a blueprint inside of you of who you're here to become and what you're meant to do with your life. Everybody's purpose, everybody's dharma is going to be different. And there's no right or wrong or better. In fact, to be a mother is such a beautiful gift. And if that was what your purpose was, I'm going to come and I'm going to be a mother and I'm going to melt into love and guidance. What a beautiful dharma. Or maybe you're an athlete and you want to push your body in the most amazing ways and see what you're capable of. Maybe your dharma is to write books. Whatever your dharma, whatever your purpose is, that's how you're going to find meaning in your life. That's how color comes back. That's how purpose comes back. And that's how we live our life to the fullest. I know for me, and hopefully this isn't discouraging, but I asked myself, what is my purpose? For probably 10 or 11 years. It was more like an opening, right? When I had that moment outside and I looked up at the sky and I was in that desperation, it was the beginning of an opening for me. A beginning of letting myself feel again, letting myself take a different path than the one that I was on. So wherever you are in the world, I really hope that this helped. I hope that if you've struggled with depression, that's something that you can see as a calling from the unconscious, from the deep. I really hope that this gives you hope. I hope that recognizing that when you do suffer, it's not something's wrong with you or something bad is happening, but rather there's a doorway that is opening. I'm not sure why that came out as a whisper, but to sum it up, if you've been in a season where life has felt flat or heavy, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you or that you've totally lost your way. Rather, it's a sign that you're being called forward into your deeper purpose. Life then becomes a process of growth and evolution, not something to pathologize or fix. And as we evolve, we learn to follow what feels joyful and alive. And that's what leads us to our purpose. And purpose is what brings meaning back into our lives. So instead of chasing it, wondering what it is, instead we follow the little nudges and we listen to what our body's telling us, and eventually we become it. Thank you so much for being here today and for listening in. I'm so grateful for those of you who are here, and I hope something stuck with you today. If you've been heavy or depressed or sad, or you haven't found your purpose, I want you to know that it's possible. And there's so many people that struggle with depression and just heaviness in life. I want you to know that you're not alone. And I'm sending you the biggest hugs, and I really hope that you have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.